Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia here and welcome back to Overwatch. So, there's been a big hoo-ha in the Overwatch community over the past week or so about a post made on the forums by Josh Noah about power creep and the state of Genji and Soldier 76 mainly. And it's garnished a lot of kind of backlash to the Overwatch developers, and I think it's time to step back and kind of think of what we mean by balance and what we mean by whether a hero is good or not. So, let's start off with this post. So the post says, dropping by with a fun fact, looking at GM players for the current patch 1.43, Genji and Soldier 76 are number 6 and number 7 in terms of win rate for damage heroes out of 16 in total. They're not doing quite as poorly as the general community sentiment would imply. Game balance, perceptions and opinions are often repeated and perpetuated enough that they start to become accepted as fact by many players. I don't necessarily disagree with that. We also should remember that things like win rates and hero power effectiveness can fluctuate significantly depending on the player's skill level. If someone complains that Reaper is too strong and another says that Reaper is too weak, they could be both correct for their current skill level. Again, not wrong. When making balance changes, we typically look at the high-end potential of player skill for a hero, but also try to keep in mind if a given change would be a significant detriment to the overall gameplay experience in lower skill brackets, and attempt to find a better solution if so. I have a big bone to pick with that. I think in general, being wary of extreme power creep is a valid and healthy concern if it's causing gameplay to become too wildly distorted from the core experience. I don't feel that we're currently anywhere close to that with the live game. So, let's address Genji and Soldier, shall we? I've been to Overbuff, and I've looked at the stats for the past week in Grandmaster. The highest win rate in Grandmaster in the past week is D.Va, with 65.91%. That's funny, because D.Va is, if not, she's definitely the worst tank in the game, if not the worst hero in the game right now. Let me continue. Pharah is second with 60%, Ashe is nearly 60% in third, Reaper is actually fourth with 57%, practically equal with Sombra, Torbjorn, and Moira. So, do you know what? Fun fact. All of those heroes have an under 1% pick rate. D.Va has a 0.16% pick rate. Pharah has a 0.42% pick rate. So what I mean by this is, yes, you can say that they've got a really good win rate when they're being picked, but look at their pick rate. It's a direct offset, right? Soldier 76 is currently 9th on the list this week. He has a 56.45% win rate, which is good. It's above 50%. Well, he's balanced then, but he's got a 0.86% win rate. So when you get to Grandmaster level, there are some people, you can name a few streamers even, that do this. They one-trick heroes. They one-trick heroes. You know, you get your famous Torbjorn one-tricks and your Symmetra one-tricks and stuff like that. But they have one-tricked that hero to a point where they are almost godlike on those heroes if they're in Grandmaster one-tricking those heroes. So they are very good at getting results with those heroes in almost impossible situations. Now, if a fairly normal player which is going to play Overwatch as it is meant to be played, as the devs have always said, it's a game of counteracting what your opponents are doing, they're never going to pick Soldier, because Soldier is never going to counteract anything your opponents are doing that doesn't have a better option instead of Soldier 76. If you're going to counteract a Pharah, why would you not go Widow? Why would you not go McCree? Why would you not go even Ashe over Soldier 76? Or, hell, you might even have a Batiste, and then you don't need a Soldier 76 at all, because Batiste is Batiste. But then we look at the heroes with the highest pick rate. So Batiste has currently got the highest pick rate in Grandmaster with 16.1%. And then you have Sigma, Orisa. They all have around 55% win rate, which is about normal for your win rate. That's about normal. If you're 55%, you're doing decently in a season. The worst win rate is Symmetra. Symmetra is the odd one out here. She has a 42% win rate, and she has a pick rate which is actually lower than D.Va's. She's got the lowest pick rate of all, I believe. No, Bastion's the lowest of all in Grandmaster, but Symmetra is 0.14, so that's kind of a different thing, right? But Then you look at it from another perspective, right? And you take the idea of the top level out of the equation, and you go to the other levels of the game. So if we go to all levels of the game, Soldier still has a very bad pick rate, 1.19%. And this is where his win rate drops below 50%. So, when Josh is talking about, you know, a player's skill level can also determine whether a hero is determined as weak or too powerful, I can understand that. There are certain heroes in the game right now which are powerful at every single level of the game. One hero in particular, that is Mei. Mei is very powerful at every single level of the game, because she is a benefactor of power creep. Power creep does exist in Overwatch, just not to the extent that Josh is implying. Now, what do I mean by that? Some heroes have had buffs that have made them extremely powerful, and then nerfs that have kind of drawn them back. Doomfist is an example of this. He was incredibly powerful, got nerfed, then got buffed again, and now has been nerfed slightly to the point where he's kind of, he's viable and not viable in some respects. But his pick rate, compared to about a month ago, has dropped massively. But that's mainly because of the Breakable Barriers patch, not necessarily direct nerfs to Doomfist. So, then we look at heroes like Orisa, Mei, and in some respects Reaper, and Hanzo. Now, Hanzo and Reaper are slightly unique because they have also had nerfs that have not entirely done much to kind of stop them from being powerful. Where, well, Reaper, the problem is with Reaper, Reaper has always been... there's a problem punishing Reaper in lower levels. There always has been, but it's worse than ever at the moment because of his lifesteal buffs. And I still think that needs to be reverted, but who knows what Blizzard will do. But Mei's the example we're going to take here. Mei, and Orisa especially actually, Mei got continuous buffs. So if you go back to April 2018, this is patch 1.22. So this is a long time ago. This is pre-Torbjorn rework, this is pre-newest Symmetra rework, this is pre-Hanzo Storm Arrows, this is pre-Rollock, pre-Goats. You know, well, not pre-Goats, not quite pre-Goats, but, you know, a lot of changes have happened since then. This is when Mei got her first ridiculous buff, and this is when Endothermic Blaster could now pierce through enemies. So this is when she could multi-freeze, basically, with her primary fire. That is a buff that was to counter the early stages of Goats, and it didn't work. But it remained in the game. And then you move on to July of that year, patch 1.26, and then they removed all damage fall off from Mei's secondary fire. Okay, again, don't know why, but that's what they did, and it didn't work. Initially. And this is, the key thing here is initially. So then you fast forward, and I've got notes from all the patches since then, basically. I'm looking at, like, Storm Arrow nerfs and Batiste buffs and stuff like that. We'll talk about a Batiste buff in a minute. But then we get to the current day. And a big, big factor to this is Rollock. Rollock caused a big problem in terms of balance, because it completely negated multi-DPS, well, 3+ DPS comps. It completely negated Goats. And a lot of these changes, Reaper changes, McCree changes, Hanzo changes, Mei changes, came about because they were to counter Goats. But Goats doesn't exist anymore. It's literally impossible to play. So what needed to happen, in my opinion, is everything that was to counter Goats specifically needed to be reverted. Otherwise, those heroes that had been buffed previously were going to show power creep. They were going to become very powerful because they had been buffed, but it had only been brought to realization now because of 222 Rollock. They were actually powerful because they couldn't do much against Goats. Hence, we've been put into a meta where Reaper, Hanzo, and especially Mei are very strong. Now, Orisa was the same. They continuously buffed Orisa over a period of a year and a half since basically her release, because she couldn't compete with Dive originally and then Reinhardt. They continuously buffed her, and once Goats was removed, all of a sudden people realised, actually this Orisa hero is actually pretty darn good at what she does, and everyone played her, and they are still playing her. And then they come along with this patch, Breakable Barriers. Yes, the barrier nerf were correct, but they made Orisa actually tankier than she was before, which meant she was still in the meta. But then we have to bring it back round, and I want to quickly mention Baptiste as well. The big problem with Baptiste, in my opinion, is he does too much damage. Why does Baptiste... Immortality Field is oppressive, right? But Immortality Field, it should never have been put in the game. And this is the thing you can always say, right? Rewind the clock 2 years. Go back to 2000... Well, 2 years, 3 years. Go back to 2017. At that point in the game, we were in Dive, and, you know, D.Va featured heavily, Winston featured heavily. Imagine this current Baptiste being put into that state of the game. They would never have put Immortality Field in the game. It would never have been considered balanced, because power creep in the game has meant that Immortality Field has become a viable option, in my opinion, for the devs to put in the game. Because they always hated D.Va's defense matrix, because it negated ults too easily. But the thing is, Baptiste's Immortality Field actually does a more effective job than defense matrix, because Immortality Field, defense matrix can negate certain ults. It can negate things like Grav and Dragon and stuff like that, but it can't negate, say, a Doomfist Meteor Strike or a Reinhardt Shatter. Immortality Field can. Immortality Field can pretty much negate every single ult in the game, apart from EMP, pretty much. So, yeah, it's not good. And if you look at the years gone by, I don't think it ever would have crossed the devs' mind to put something like that in the game. It's only in recent times that they thought, oh, actually, yeah, this could work. And that's because of power creep. Power creep exists, but it's not to the extent where it's going to completely destroy Overwatch. And this is why the next couple of patches are crucial in terms of what happens with power creep. Now, going back to Baptiste's Immortality Field and Defense Matrix, this is why D.Va's in such a bad place. You may say D.Va was meta for years, and she was. She was very powerful. That was because of Defense Matrix, her ability to peel, and then her ability to assassinate. The thing is, with the new heroes in the game, Sigma, Baptiste, people like that, D.Va has become irrelevant in some respects. Now, obviously, Jeff Kaplan confirmed on Reddit that they are looking at D.Va and perhaps giving her a 3-second cooldown buff on her boosters. I don't think that's going to solve the D.Va issue. I really don't think that's going to solve the D.Va issue. The D.Va issue is she's got no place anymore. She's got no place. Everyone else does a better job of what D.Va used to do now. Sigma can peel with his rock and his shield. And he has the Suck, which can do a similar job to Defense Matrix. Baptiste is the peel now. He is, in so many games at a high level, your second support is not going to die if your Baptiste does a good job. So there's no need for D.Va to peel anymore. For D.Va to assassinate, she needs a viable target to assassinate. She can't do that because of Baptiste. She can't do that because of Sigma. So, D.Va's just stood there in the middle of the fight, going away with her fuse and cannons, not really doing much. Whereas you compare her with a Roadhog, who can get much more damage done. You compare her with a Sigma, who has got such a varied kit, he can do so much different stuff, and he can do a lot of damage as well, and adds to the barriers. Zarya, it does more damage than D.Va, and she has the bubbles as well. D.Va has just lost her place. She's completely irrelevant, and that's why she doesn't get picked. The thing is, how do you solve this if you're Blizzard? You've now... These heroes are in the game and they're not going anywhere. So, what do we do? The only way I see D.Va coming back in the meta is if she gets a rework, or some heroes get a massive nerfs, because I just don't see a place for D.Va anymore. And it pains me to say that as an ex-D.Va main, it really does. But moving on from that, and you get this idea that balance can never exist in Overwatch. I don't care what you say, balance will never exist in Overwatch. Do you know why? Because there will always be a meta. And as long as there is a meta, there will never be balance in Overwatch. Because the meta is the strongest composition to play on that patch, or the strongest bunch of heroes to play on that patch. And as long as you've got that sentiment, which you will always have that sentiment at the highest levels of Overwatch, as long as you've got that sentiment, you will never have balance. Every hero, it's never going to happen. Not every hero. They're never going to be right to play in every single situation, because that's not what Overwatch was built for. Overwatch was built as a list of heroes which had special unique abilities, and in competitive the idea was to counterpick your opponents. And so there will always be a meta to counterpick that meta. You see what I mean? So as long as there's a meta, you'll never have perfect balance. So what is balance? Well, balance could be certain heroes not being OP. So in my opinion, Mei is not balanced because she is too effective. She is too effective at all levels of the game. Balance, in my opinion, would be an enforced meta change. So what I mean by that is every 2 months or every month we get a patch that considerably changes the balance of the game. And so it shifts the meta every time. This is what will keep the game fresh. And this is what everyone wants the game to be. They want the game to be fresh. So let's get rid of the idea of balance here. Forget balance. Let's have freshness in the game. So let's have different metas every month, 2 months. How could we do that? Well, you could drastically change the numbers on heroes in terms of you could nerf damage, nerf shields, whatever. You could change things. You could, just completely screw up in some respects the damage and healing rates of certain heroes, and it would completely blow the meta apart. Or you could do hero bans. So, hero bans is a thing that has been talked about for a while. Hero bans is something that exists in games like League of Legends. And hero bans, in my opinion, I don't think you could ever do it game by game. And the reason I say this is because you get the same heroes banned over and over again. If I got the chance to ban a hero every game, it would be Mei. Guaranteed. And I don't care what meta, what state we're in. It would probably always be Mei. Because I hate being frozen. I hate having control taken away from me. And the worst hero for that is Mei. So, what I think would be an interesting thing to do is for the devs to run a poll. Every month or 2 months. Do a poll and say, here's 5 heroes. Which 2 of them do you want banned for the next competitive season? Then we could vote. Next competitive season, you get 2 heroes banned. So imagine if you were given 5 heroes to ban. Genji, Orisa, Baptiste, Hanzo, and Ana. Whatever. Just take some of those heroes. And you were to ban Orisa and Baptiste. Imagine what that would do right now. That would send the meta into an apocalyptic mess, wouldn't it? But it would be fun, wouldn't it? It would be so fun. You wouldn't have Orisa, who is the best tank in the game right now at the high levels. We'll get onto that in a minute. And you wouldn't have Baptiste, who is by far the best hero in the game right now, because he does more damage than Soldier 76, and he does better healing than a lot of the support line. So that would screw the meta up entirely, but it would add a freshness to the game. So that's the only way I can see competitive staying fresh all the time, is if we had enforced metas, which would be most easily achievable by hero bans. So that's the way I look at that. But the thing is, it won't change the entire game. And that's the issue. We have different tiers in competitive Overwatch: Grandmaster, Master, Diamond, Platinum, Gold, Silver, Bronze. They all have their unique properties, right? I have played in a lot of them. Let's just leave it at that, shall we? Grandmaster, you're basically playing the meta most of the time. So if you look at the most picked heroes in Grandmaster, Baptiste, Sigma, Orisa, Hanzo, Zenyatta, Wrecking Ball, Mei, Lucio. It's pretty standard, right? Pretty much the meta. Your meta support line is Zen, Baptiste at the moment, your meta tank line is Sigma, Orisa, and your meta DPS line is Mei and Hanzo. So that's fine, and that's probably what the devs are going to balance off of. But then, if we move, say, down into Platinum, who do you think the most picked hero is in Platinum? It's Reinhardt. Reinhardt has an 11% pick rate in Platinum. I can vouch for that. Most of the time, the tank line run in Diamond is Reinhardt Zarya, not Orisa Sigma. Orisa actually has a 3.85% pick rate in Platinum this week. Interesting, huh? The only correlation is Baptiste. Baptiste is still very, very high. When you go down to Bronze, the highest pick rate is actually Moira, but that doesn't surprise me. Junkrat is actually 6th on the list in Bronze. D.Va is actually fairly high up there in Bronze. But then when you look at supports like Zen is meta in the higher ranks, but Zen is actually the 6th least picked hero in Bronze. So how do you balance that? How do you balance that? If you could say that Reinhardt is OP in Platinum, but he's not OP in Grandmaster because he's not meta in Grandmaster. Reinhardt still has a much bigger pick rate in Diamond compared to Orisa. It's only in Master and Grandmaster where Orisa actually becomes dominant. So this is what Josh Noah means by we should also consider that things like win rates and hero power effectiveness can fluctuate significantly depending on the player's skill level. This is what he means by that. You can go out and say Reinhardt is OP, but he's OP up until Diamond. In Master Grandmaster, he is very easily squished by Orisa. And to be quite honest, I've squished Reinhardt with Orisa. And I'm not in Master or Grandmaster. So it's very dependent on skill level. And this is why you will never get balance in Overwatch. Because the skill levels are so varied that there is basically a unique meta for Diamond and below, and sometimes Silver and below as well. You could kind of say there's 3 metas. There's the Bronze Silver meta, there's the Gold Platinum Diamond meta, and then there's the Master Grandmaster Top 500 meta, where it can vary massively. There is a massive variant between Diamond and Master right now, in terms of tank lines and stuff like that. The only hero that transcends all of the ranks right now, pretty much, is Baptiste. Isn't that interesting? So I love it when I make a video and then they release a PTR patch that kind of negates some of what I said in the video. The point still stands about balance and stuff like that. I really don't believe you can have balance if you have a meta, and you're going to have a meta in Overwatch, you're always going to have one. But to go over what's happened on the PTR, so last night they uploaded the PTR and they've nerfed Baptiste. They've reduced the duration of his immortality field from 8 to 5 seconds. That's a really good nerf. His immortality field now has a 25-second cooldown instead of 20 seconds. Again, that's good. And they've increased the cost of his ultimate by 20%. So this is really good to try to change Baptiste. It makes him more skillful in terms of the use of his immortality field, I would hope. But I think that still makes him pretty strong. They've also nerfed Mei. Her endothermic blaster slowing effect now reduces enemy movement speed from 20% to 70%, down from 30% to 90%. And then slowing effect duration reduced from 1.5 to 1 second, so people will be slowed for longer. Again, I don't think it's enough. But I'll never think Mei is enough. I quite liked something that, was it Leg Day said it or something, the caster? Just stop her from freezing. Like, with her primary fire, don't allow her to completely freeze you. Allow her to slow you, and then save the complete freeze for her ult. Because her freezing someone to the point where they actually can't play the game is so damn powerful that I think it should be mainly an ult only. So, They've buffed D.Va as well. They've reduced the cooldown of her boosters from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. I mentioned this earlier. It was rumoured it was going to happen. It kind of makes D.Va like Pharah. But in terms of what it's going to do to D.Va, I really don't think it's going to be all that much, because I don't see a place for D.Va in the meta right now. Orisa, her fortified damage reduction has been reduced from 50 to 40%. Again, Orisa's too tanky at the moment. I still think this makes Orisa pretty strong though, so keep going with Orisa right now. And Hanzo has also had a nerf. His primary fire maximum projectile speed reduced from 125 to 110. Again, don't think it's going to make a massive difference to Hanzo. And Doomfist has had his uppercut recovery time increased from 0.2 to 0.5 seconds. Again, a nerf to Doomfist, but not a massive nerf. It's a start. Nothing for Reaper, which is... yeah, but... it's a start. There's more I would like to see, but, you know, that's all we can ask for, basically, at the moment. And hopefully this goes to some way to combating the Mei problem, because the Mei problem is a serious problem. But I will leave it here. So, back to past me, I guess. So, I'm gonna leave it here. That was a talk about what's going on with patches and the devs at the moment. I don't think this was the best way to respond. I think the Genji and Soldier thing about being 6th and 7th in terms of win rate in GM, that's just silly. That's just silly, because you've got to look at pick rate as well. It's just because those people playing those heroes are basically one-tricking those heroes and are basically gods at the game. And if they were meta, they'd probably be in top 500. You see what I mean? But in terms of, you know, power and effectiveness being dependent on skill level and stuff like that, and the power creep thing, it's a very give or take thing. But I think this pulling out the stat of Soldier 76 and Genji was very short-sighted in some respects. And the buff that they're apparently going to give D.Va, I don't think will make much difference to D.Va at all, because I think she's in a very bad place, and without significant changes, I don't think D.Va's gonna be going anywhere anytime soon. But this was a really long video, and I appreciate that, but it's a talk I wanted to have about power creep and the patch and all that. This is by no means me slamming the devs. This is me giving my honest opinion. And it's going to be some interesting patches coming up, because it will determine where we go. In the next patch, there needs to be changes to Mei, and Hanzo preferably as well, and probably Orisa. But we will see where the devs go with it. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching today. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.